Hi again, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on the Real Japa experience. Today, I have Temi. Temi is would call her an ex international student because she's graduated now and recently, which is something that I found very unique about Temi's story is that she had to go back to Nigeria recently after she graduated, and I believe after going through 2 years post study visa. So today we're going to be hearing Temi's story in relation to mental health. The fact about mental health and international students is that a lot of international students that come to the UK or even go to study abroad have more of a reason to have issues with mental health, have more of a reason where their mental health is affected, because obviously starting from leaving your family, leaving everything you know behind, the loneliness, missing home. But beyond that, it's very hard for international students to come to the realization that their mental health is being affected because they don't know about mental health. And this is due to archaic traditional and cultural beliefs where a lot of Africans, especially Nigerians, are uninformed and ignorant on the topic of mental health. And so that just translates to people not just talking about mental health. I myself didn't know what mental health was until I moved to the UK, and believe me, I was shocked. So today we're going to be once again listening to Temi's story. And as we go into it, I hope that you learn a lot and you find this valuable for yourself. Hi, Temi.
Hello, hi Joanna.
How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining me today on the Real Japa experience, all the way from Lagos, Nigeria.
Unfortunately.
Yes, so Temi, we're talking mental health today. And obviously, like I said just now, you were an international student in the UK, but you've had to go back to Nigeria recently. We'll get into the reason why you went back to Nigeria. But speaking about mental health, tell me, what was your story? When and how did you move to the UK? What was your age? Why did you come? What did you come to do in the UK? Give us a bit of your background story.
So I moved to the UK when I was 16 to study. I think that was around 2018. And yeah, in 2018, I to pursue my degree in architecture. Because I was so young, I started off with a foundation degree in architecture. And then I think around September was when I fully went into my first year, and I was 17 at the time when I actually started uni. So I was 16 during my foundation, but 17 when I started my actual degree. So yeah, that's just a story of how I went to the UK, and since then was just trying to get my degree. But then going at the time, I was so young, so I wasn't really as familiar with like a lot of things, especially in regards to like the immigration laws and like working as well as being a student. So I just kind of went into it really blind. But yeah.
Wow, I was going to say 16 is a very young age, but I came when I was 17 myself, so
Yeah.
no difference. But that's still quite young. That must have been scary. How did you feel like coming to the UK at that age alone, by the way?
I really wasn't scared, to be honest. It was exciting, and I was really grateful. I was just really excited to go. So it wasn't really scary. I wasn't really the type to be homesick, if I'm honest. I was quite content. I think it was just really, it was daunting at some points where like I had issues, not really issues, but like it was just really hard to make friends at the time because I was young and I was trying to hide my age from everyone else because everyone was much older than me. And like once people know that you're young, they're like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Type of thing. Like there was just this sort of like fear in me. So like my first year of uni, I was just kind of like going to uni and coming back home. Didn't really do much because I was just waiting till I was old enough basically. Because I remember I was around the time I was with people who would always say things like, oh, they don't want to catch a case, hanging out with, a minor or something like that. So I just used to keep to myself mostly. But it wasn't too
Yeah,
bad.
so you had quite a small circle. So one
Yeah.
another thing that you mentioned earlier was that you weren't really the type of person to feel homesick. So how what was your first experience with mental health? Now let's get into that. So today we're talking about mental health. What was your first experience with mental health? Because again, I came when I was 17, yeah. And I came
Mm,
like less than no, not less than about 6 months or so after I lost my dad. So when I came,
mm,
for me it was quite different. I was feeling a certain way when I came. I didn't want to speak to anyone. I didn't want to go out. At first, I was blaming it on the lockdown because I came in 2021, so there was still a bit of like COVID going around. And at first I would say, oh, I don't want to go out because there's COVID, blah, 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 blah. But like later on, I realized like I didn't even like calling my mom. I did not like speaking to people on the phone. I liked when my room was dark. And the things I was feeling in my mind just didn't make sense to me at first. But it got to a certain point, I was like, why
mm,
do I feel this way? Do you get? And it was later on I
yeah.
realized the way I even found out what mental health was a bit of a funny story. It was from a school project. That was how I found out. And I was like, why everything that they're saying, why does it relate to me? That's not okay.
Yeah.
But for you, what was your first experience with mental health? How did you even find out what mental health was?
So actually, I'm trying to remember, but when I think about this, I just remember a particular day in my room, just like you just said, it was completely dark, curtains closed, and I just remember sitting on my bed and crying and like screaming, like trying to like shouting to God. But I don't necessarily remember how I got to that point. I don't know what events that led up to that point. I think it was a mixture of at the time not really having a solid group of friends because I did have friends, but that was like later towards my third year when I started to like find a group of people. But initially in the beginning, I just kind of kept to myself. So I think it was that. It was also work because at the time I think I was working at McDonald's as well, so I had to deal with that as well. Like it was just not really like the best and like environment. It could be toxic sometimes, and also I was getting like £5 an hour at the time. And I think another thing was just uni work as well, and I just felt just very lonely. But the time when I understood that this is like mental health stuff was when I was actually watching a show on was it Netflix? I don't even remember what I was watching it on. It's called Euphoria. And the first season of that show was them depicting the main character kind of had went through mental health issues and depicting some of the things. And there was a particular scene where she was lying down in bed and I think she was watching Love Island in that scene. And she wanted to pee so badly, but she couldn't bring herself to get out of bed to go and pee. So she just kind of held it onto the point where she had to go to the hospital. And I actually could relate to that a little because I was like, wow, that's how I am. Like I would just be in bed, like I would need to pee or like I'll need to get up and brush my teeth, but I just don't have that energy to get out of bed. All I do is just like kind of lay in bed and rot. I hate that word, but yeah, that was when I first realized I was like, oh, okay, this is depression. This is what depression feels like. It wasn't even like anxious, and it didn't even have to be at night. It could be during the day. I just could not bring myself to get up. Like I just couldn't even bring myself to get out of bed. That was where it was. Like I just was like, yeah, let me just stay here. Like I just did not want to get out of bed. I didn't want to talk to anyone. That was where it was. I can't really explain it. One of the things that I learned about when you're dealing with your mental health issues and stuff like that, or I don't want to say mental health issues because I feel like that's so like broad and like there's so many things that mental health issues is, but like particularly I mean maybe sadness and like unexplainable like maybe I don't want to say depression, but that's what I mean. Is that sometimes you find yourself, you might not be sad necessarily or crying, but you just stop taking care of yourself. Like you just stop having motivation to do anything. If it's schoolwork, like the joy of life just kind of like is sucked out of you. That's what it was that I was feeling at the time.
Because for me it felt like I was gradually fading away, like you said, I wouldn't want
Yeah.
to get out to shower or brush my teeth. And I think the worst part for me was a day that I woke up and I was like, yeah, I'm going to cut my hair. And if I took a
Oh my god, I had the
scissors,
same. Same thing happened to me.
Yeah, literally, I took a scissors and I cut my hair in the most uneven way you can ever imagine. That was when I knew. I was like, no, Joanna, you're not okay.
No, I
Yeah.
can relate. I did that as well.
So now imagine for both of us not knowing the reason why we were feeling the way we were feeling. You found out from a movie. That's that's serious. And I found out from doing a school project. And that just goes to show what the statistics say, or rather should we say what research says about a lot of Africans not knowing about mental health. So now I want to
Mm.
ask you, speaking of your perception of mental health, before you came to the UK and compared to now that you've come to the UK, you've seen, you've conquered, and you're now back in Nigeria, how did the culture in Nigeria influence your perception of mental health? So, in the sense of like, what way did you see mental health before, and what way do you see mental health now?
I think for me, right, I never saw it. Like that wasn't a thing that was ever mentioned. I think it's only just recently getting talked about a lot. I think just because of like social media and like our generation just being more vocal. But like that just was
Yeah.
never really a thing. I just never knew about that. And like even the thought about depression and things like that, that's a thing that if you mention that, they're like, God forbid, that is like a disease or something. And it's like, how can you be depressed? You know, you're a child of God, things like that. That was my perception of it. So I always saw it as something that, yeah, it could never happen to me. That's genuinely how I felt. Like I didn't think it could. I thought it was a Western culture thing. Like that only happened to white people. Black people don't deal with depression. That was the mindset I had, and I think some of it has to do with like, unfortunately, religion. You know how people's perception, they try and like you know how I said, if you say something like that, they'll be like, don't say that, you're a child of God, or don't say that, like, you know, that's not your portion type of thing. So it's very
It's
dismissed.
actually very true because I was going through a research somewhere. I can't remember. Maybe it's like the one of these health organizations or something, and they were talking about how a lot of like because of like what you were saying, because of the traditional and religious beliefs of a lot of Africans in general, not just even Nigerians now alone,
Yeah.
Africans in general, they tend to mistake mental health issues for mental illness. So two different things. So mental
Yeah.
health in terms of like we're talking about anxiety, depression, social anxiety, all of these things. And then mental illness, which is like literal madness. So like the psychiatric side of things, if that makes sense. So it's like they sometimes like don't are not able to like remove one from the other. So when you say, "Oh, I have a mental health," an elderly person in Nigeria would automatically say, "Ah, are you saying you are mad? Are you saying we need to take you to the
Yeah.
psychiatric hospital?" And even like what you say, the next thing they'll say is, "Let's go to church. Let's go to this
Yeah.
person that will pray for you. It's an evil spirit. It's a demon. You need to be delivered." Blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
which is so like I was the first time I saw that research, I was like, no, but no, that doesn't make sense. But then I dipped it and I was like, you know what? That's very true. Because Nigerians, I always joke about this and I'll say Nigerians are the most religious people you would ever meet because
Yeah.
they connect everything to God. You tell somebody, oh, I'm sick, they'll tell you, God forbid. You say, let the weak say, I am strong.
Yeah.
And these are the things that are killing us quite literally because another research did show explicitly that even doctors abroad do not know how to handle mental health issues of international students because international students, we come with a different kind of story. We come with different kinds of traumas. So it's like when we go even to the doctors here abroad, it's like they don't know what to do. They don't know how to treat it. A lot of mental health issue is not about the medicine or the drugs that you use. It's more psychological, the support you get.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
speaking on that, so how did you after you found out, let's get back to your story now. After you found out you were feeling that way, How did you deal with it? How did you deal with your mental
I
health?
mean, I don't really think I dealt with it. I just kept going on with life. Like, because at the end of the day, like, you can feel how you feel, but like, life just doesn't stop. Like, it keeps going, whether you want to pick yourself back up or you want to stay in the dump. So for me, I just kind of, I don't know, I just kept doing what I was doing, which was I was just, I kept going to work, kept doing my uni work. There was nothing in particular that I did differently to stop the feelings. I would, it's just like, there'll be moments where I'll just be okay, and I'm like, okay, yeah, today's a good day. Let's keep pushing. Like, I don't know, there was just nothing that I knew to do at the time. Again, because I don't know how old was I at this time, like maybe 18, 19. Like, I didn't really know really what to do or how to go about it. Just pray and hope everything is fine. And at the time, for me, I felt like work was just a bit more important because, again, I had to pay my rent. I also had to upkeep and even like, Nigeria is hard already, and like coming abroad is like you want to take advantage of the opportunities you have and all that thing. So there's this pressure of like wanting to just keep up, because you don't want to have to go back to Nigeria. You don't want to have to face all these things. So sometimes I have a bit of resentment towards Nigeria as a nation because I feel like if our country worked, we wouldn't have to really go through some of the things that we go through as being international students. Because we're dealing with things, exchange rates. Being in the UK, you're thinking of exchange rates, how it has gone up, oh, it has gone up, oh, how my parents pay my school fees. That was some things that really kept me up at
Yeah,
night.
yeah, no, 100%. There's that feeling of maybe I should have done more. Maybe I could have, taken that 12-hour shift. Maybe I could have. Yeah,
Yes.
there's definitely always that. I always had this anxiety of, oh my gosh, is my mom fine? Is my sister fine? Or maybe I shouldn't have left.
Mm,
Maybe I shouldn't have left Nigeria. Maybe I should have just stayed at home and be responsible, to be a responsible daughter, taking care of my mom. What's going to happen now? Is somebody going to be sick? I had so much anxiety. Like, my mind was never quiet. When your mind is shouting at you. That was how my
yeah.
life was. I was going crazy. And all of this I was going through alone because I did not know how I was feeling. Talk more to go and tell somebody this is how I was feeling. What would I say? I don't have a name for it.
I think for me, right, it wasn't really, I didn't really have that whole like, oh, I found anyone in church type of thing. It wasn't like that for me. For me, I was just, like I said, I just kind of moved on from it. And I think my moving on from it was just avoiding it. And that was like, oh, if there was anything that I could go out with my friends to do and just like, like it, it's scary because you never know, like, I don't know how to explain it, but like it's a very slippery slope, and it's not always that you have the opportunity to have anyone that, because that was something I really struggled with. There was no one I really felt at the time that was a mentor or somebody like that. So it was just like, okay, I'm just going to do whatever.
But moving on. So obviously, while you were schooling, you were working at McDonald's, which many Nigerians tend to mistake. They make this mistake of they come to the UK and they think, oh, I'm going to get a job in an office. Sorry to bust your bubble, but we all had to work and have to work belittling jobs at a point. I remember I was actually talking about this recently with a friend. I was talking about how my first job was at at a one-star hotel. I don't even think I
One
can give it.
star.
I don't even think I can give that hotel star at all. It was one hotel in a corner. I can't even remember how I applied for that job. Talk more of getting it. I shall found myself there. And I tell you what, it was terrible. I was 17. It was horrible. The things my eyes saw working that job, my mouth cannot repeat it. It was bad. Guys, imagine you are a
Mm,
17-year-old and you're working in a hotel, you're cleaning the rooms. Yeah, let me not use
I
the
can
whole of my mouth
imagine.
to speak.
I already know what you.
It was bad. And what even made it worse was, I remember it was December. If you're already in the UK and you're studying, December is that winter period where you have a lot of assignments and short time.
Mm.
And it was December, and I told my manager, and I was like, okay, can I get 2 weeks off work? These 2 weeks is going to be 40 hours, anyways, because I only work 20 hours a week.
20.
Yeah. And then she was like, okay, that's fine. Ask me why 2 days after she's sending me text message. Why are you not at work? I was like,
That happened to me many times.
I was like, I took time off work now. What do you want? She's like, yeah. Is it that you choose between your education or the job? I was like, my dear, hold your job, because without this education, I don't have visa. Without visa, I don't have the job. So what's the point? I'd
Yeah.
rather starve. Please hold your work. It's already terrible. Already a terrible job as it is, and you're now using it as bragging rights. I just
Yeah.
left her, even though I starved for a couple of months, but I was proud of myself for leaving that job because it was terrible.
It always is, to be honest. Like, and some of them do know that you're a student, but they don't care. Like, they just want to do what they want to do on their own time, and they intentionally take advantage of you, take advantage of your time, and that's another thing that people don't really know until you are there and you experience it. Finding jobs, especially nowadays, is very hard. Even in retail, like, it's hard for some reason. I don't know why, but like, even when you do get the job, you will literally work. Like, you'll find yourself doing work that you're like, if I was in Nigeria, this could never be me.
I know,
Like, what am I
right?
doing? Like, who is this person speaking to me like this? Like, do you even know how I'm, like, how much how much money had to be invested in me to be here, and this person is here
Exactly.
just kind of like talking down on me and being racist because I mixed up their order.
Mm-hmm.
It's things like that, and it's like, it's almost like you don't have a choice, because you just have to keep going. You just have to keep bearing it. At least
Yeah.
you're abroad. At least you're in the UK. You hear people saying, "Oh, it's still better than Nigeria. It's still better than Nigeria." But it's like, okay, but it's hard as an international student.
Yes, that's
Like,
what I tell people sometimes. I'm like, people are saying, Jana, you are saying we should not come because you are already there. You are selfish. But is it really better though? Like that brings me to another question that I wanted to ask you. Is it really worth seeking these greener pastures to the detriment of one's mental health? Like, as somebody that again, you've come, you've seen, you've conquered, you've gone home with your victory. What would you say about this? Like, is it worth leaving home, leaving what somebody knows as home, to come to the UK to, work for nothing, literally, to the detriment of their mental health?
to be honest, I feel like the best thing to know is that there's no such, in my opinion, right? There's not really anything such as a greener pasture. The grass is never always green out on the other side most of the time. I do think that if you have the opportunity to, like, maybe study abroad or work abroad, and you feel like that's something that you want to do and you want to pursue it, then go ahead and do that. But I feel like, don't have the mindset that this is what will solve all your problems, or this is what will give you a better life, quote unquote. Like, a better life does not come with, oh, I'm in this country, or, oh, I'm, doing this job. It doesn't, because I'm telling you, you will get to the country, you get the job, and you will be some, if you're not careful, you can be very, very, very miserable. And that was something that now that I'm a bit older, and I wouldn't know these things if not for the fact that I went through it. And because I went through it now, I feel like I wish I could, there's a lot of things that I would have done differently, but I had to go through it to be able to even come to this understanding that, okay, I would have done this differently. But this is the reality of it, is that, yeah, you can go abroad. It's great. It's always a great opportunity to, like, if you can go to a different country and work and, like, do things that you may not be able to do in Nigeria. That's amazing. That's awesome. But you should always just have in the back of your mind that it's not going to be it's not always going to be live up to your expectations. It's not going to be that fantasy that you've painted in your head. It's not going to be what you've seen online. It's going to be harsh. Like, I feel like once you know that, it's not going to be as daunting or as harsh as you like it might be when you actually get there, because you've prepared your mind. You already know that, okay, yes, in the UK you can work 40 hours, but they're going to tax you and they're going to take all your money. Like when when you already have that mindset and you see your salary, you might not be as heartbroken because you're already expected it. But I think that's some of the mistakes. Even when I was speaking to a girl that moved, she went to work in the UK, like with a care visa or something. And I think at the time they were telling her that, oh, your salary will be £21, £21,000 a year. And obviously she was converting that to naira. She's like, like wow, that's a lot of money. Only for her to get there, and she's like, she's barely seeing anything from that salary. Like it's like everything is going out, task, rent, all these type of things. And like I was just asking her, like, so how do you now feel being here? She was like, like, like there's no, like that joy, that excitement is not there anymore, because it's like harsh reality. Like this is what it really is. So for me, I wouldn't say you should, if the opportunity comes, you shouldn't take it, but you should have that mindset to know that this is not what is going to give you a better life at the end of the day. Like better, I think that's something I'm learning as well. Like there's no job, no friendship, no person, no country that's going to give you a better life. Like I still don't know what gives you a better life. I don't even know what a better life is per se, because life will always come at you in different ways. Even though you are living in the most comfortable position ever, life will still always come and hit you unprepared, like if you're not prepared. So I just think it's to maintain your expectations and go with an attitude that you're ready for whatever
Like
comes your way.
that's the mistake a lot of us make. We come with like a rose colored glass. There's something you called it the other day when we were having this conversation. A
Yeah, I
rose
can't
colored
remember now.
glass. I think that
Yeah,
was what you
yeah,
say. The people come with a rose colored glass because it's like you're coming, you already have a perception in your mind. But it's like actually come with no expectation. Come to be shocked. Because when the
yeah,
actual shock comes, you won't be that surprised, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Because like your friend, unfortunately, there's actually no fulfillment as we know it to be. People think of those of us that are abroad as, oh my gosh, you are rich, your life is fulfilled, you don't have any problems in life, you have no worries.
yeah. Life is good.
Yeah, it's like life is groovy, you're wearing designer, my dear, the designer is Primark. If you're even very
Do you know
rich.
what's even funny? Your maintenance will go down. I mean, in the sense of like you're not going to be getting your hair done whenever you want to. Like if you better go and learn how to braid your hair. Like
Definitely
that was
not.
another thing that you're doing. Like that's how expensive it is.
It is, yeah.
Like you're just like compromising here and there, compromising here. And like some people are used to this thing in Nigeria. Oh, just go to the salon every 2 weeks, or go and do our
Exactly.
nails. Or unless you are really, really rich,
Yes,
that's not
so
something that you can do. That's a luxury.
me, I'm even a
Even like
good example
buying,
of that one. Like I've been in the UK almost, yeah, I've been in the UK for 3 years now. I've been to the hairdresser once. And after that one time, I told myself I'm never going to do this again because it was so expensive.
yeah,
Meanwhile, in Nigeria, I do my hair like literally every week. Hi there, it's me, Joanna, and I am making a quick pause to thank you for listening to this episode of the Real Japa Experience. I encourage you to keep listening and learning because, as we all know, the topic of mental health, which is what we're covering on this episode, is something that is common among a lot of young people. And as I said at the beginning of the episode, this is something that international students actually do go through quite a lot. So, before we continue, I would like to encourage you that as you're listening and whatever platform you're listening on, to please give a rating or a review, a comment, a like. Also, make sure that you're subscribing and following on whatever platform you're listening to the Real Jackpot Experience on so that you can get regular notifications of updates. On the next part of this episode, Temi is going to be taking us through the reason why she quit her job in the UK and moved back to Nigeria. She's also going to be talking about how things has been for her in Nigeria and what she's feeling about the move generally and what she has planned for the future. Stay connected and I'll see you on the other side. But yeah, so speaking about getting jobs now, so you graduated 2 years ago. Did you get a job after, like an actual architectural job or something
Of course
related?
not.
So how did that work?
I,
What was the journey after graduation?
so so I finished my uni in June. Like my assignment submitted, my graduation was in October. So even before I graduated, it was constantly applying, trying to get internships, trying to get something close to my degree. Never did. Um, I then, I think I was working at JD at the time, so I just kept working at JD Sports. That's where I was, and then I went to work at a call center, and then I went to work at B&Q. I was a showroom designer. It's not really what you think it is. It's very like, I don't know if you've ever played Sims. It's just like Sims. You people come in, they ask you to design their kitchen, and you just place cabinets here and there. To me, I was like, okay, you know what? This is the closest thing to architecture that I have. And then I think from there, I became a project coordinator. So that was still, I was still in it was still retail. Um, so yeah, I did that. Again, that was another thing that was really stressing me out because I just could not get a job, could not land a job after everything, after all the sleepless nights, like there was just nothing, right? Then I got a job at this company as like a trainee project manager. So it was in construction. Again, I was like, okay, this is the closest thing I have to architecture. But like, no, I didn't find a job straight away. It wasn't easy for me. And it was just like, um, how would I even say it? Yeah, no, it was just it was a terrible process for me. And something I wish that I did earlier was maybe started applying for different roles and not focus solely on architecture. But how would I have known? Because that was what I went to study. But part of me was like, oh, maybe I could have applied for other things. Because I even then found out that if you graduate in architecture, the first year or first 2 years of you being an architect, your salary is like £21,000 a year or 23. Like it's not very high. So even if I was to get sponsored, or if even if the company wanted to sponsor me, they wouldn't because I wasn't making up to 26K, which
Yeah.
was at the time that was the amount you need to be making to be sponsored. But I did not know this at all. This is again one of the things I was saying, that coming so young, you are just coming like, oh, I want to study, I want to get a good grade, but like I didn't know much about the immigration details of it. Like, what does it actually take to be sponsored? I had no one that had been sponsored for me to be able to ask these kind of questions. So that was something I was completely unfamiliar with. It was just really me just constantly applying. And then I got the trainee project manager role. That one as well, it wasn't making enough.
Hmm.
You would think that I would be, but that was like
As a
below.
manager.
Yeah. But
Wow.
then they considered it like, oh, it's a trainee role, like we're training you. Girl, I was managing like 9 projects by myself. I didn't
Nine
even know what I was
projects
doing.
and for a low
Yeah, so
salary.
yeah, it was
Wow.
like it was that job. Till today, I still think about it, and I just have, because I think like, oh, should I have left or what? Should I
Mm-hmm.
have just like stuck it through and see how it went? But every time I think about that, think back at the job, I get really stressed out. I'm very worried because at the time the job was really far from where I lived. So it was like in the middle of nowhere, like in the farm type of area. I needed to drive to get there. Now I wasn't driving.
Wow.
Bear in mind, I'm a student all this time before I get this. So how much am I really making to pay for my driving lessons every week? So that was another issue. So I couldn't really like, get a car at the time. So I
Okay.
was having to get taxis to work, which was anything up from 15 to 20 pounds. a day.
A day. Wow.
Yeah.
Is this about, wait, hold on. Is this the point where we talk about, no, rather, this is the point where we talk about um, discrimination in the workspace, which again leads back to mental health. Like, you were working, we would even still call this a belittling job because they were not paying you enough. And I'm sure you were giving everything to make sure you were doing your best in that role, even though
Yes. And
you probably had no clue how to work out that role, if that makes sense.
no, yeah, 1000%. That's another thing. Again, when you're a student, you just want a job, you want something.
Yeah,
And I
you just
think
take
out of
anything.
desperation, I was just like, let me just, I didn't want the job because of how far away it was,
Hmm.
and like having to get a taxi. And I remember I told the recruiter that time, and she was like, no, 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 don't let that stop you. Like, this is a really big company. If you have it on your CV, it's going to like, it's going to help you. Like, people will see, like it to take you places type of thing. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, like, let me be taking driving lessons, and then hopefully, I'll be able to eventually get a car and whatever. But that wasn't it. Like, I so I would have to like it was so painful because I have to get up early in the morning. Sometimes in order for me to avoid paying for a taxi, I'll try and get a bus to
Hmm.
the closest bus stop to the office where it was still quite far away. And then I will sit down, I'll wait in freezing cold because it's around winter time. And I'll wait and I'm like, okay, let me get a taxi from here because if I get a taxi from this place, it will cost me £10 to get to the office rather than if I got it from my house where it would cost me £20. So it was a lot of like, I don't know, like even after work, sometimes I won't get a taxi. I'll walk on the roads. Like I even have a video of my phone just kind of walking through the middle of nowhere because like I said, the office was located in like a farm type area. So I'm just walking in the middle of nowhere. There's no other person on the road. It's grass on the left side, grass on the other side. Me just walking, 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 walking,
Wow. So
hoping
it
that
was in the countryside, basically.
yeah, I was on the countryside,
So what was
just
your
hoping that
mental
no
health?
one.
What was your mental health like in this at this stage of your life at that
It got
point?
progressively worse. Um, this is another thing that people don't talk about. When it comes to when you finally get the job or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
is you start to deal with kind of like you start becoming very anxious. So this was me on Fridays at work. I'm like, I can't wait for Friday to end. Like once it's 5 o'clock, that's when my joy comes. Like from 5 till Saturday morning, I'm happy. Then from Saturday evening, Sunday, I don't like to go out. I don't like to talk to me
Hmm.
because I'm mourning the weekend. I'm mourning the fact that I have to go to work on Monday. Like it was, I don't want to say anxiety because anxiety can be very severe. For me, I was just very like not at ease. Like I just didn't have peace. I'll just be stressed. I remember I'll be telling my friend like I don't want to go to work. Like this is so like it's so much. Like it's too much. I can't deal with it. My manager doesn't really care for me in the way because again they said it was a trainee role. I started to now question myself because I was like, okay, God, I really prayed for a job. Now I prayed. Now I have a job. But like, why is everything so hard? Look at the amount of money I'm earning. It's going to my taxi. It's going to all these things. Like I'm barely even seeing. I don't even feel like I'm working a. I'm like I'm now a corporate girl or a corporate baddie, as people will say. Like I don't feel it. I'm still feeling as if I have to. I'm still trekking to work as I've always done in all my other jobs. Like, why God? And like, I even started to compare myself to some of my friends as well because, I had friends who were working hybrid jobs and, they were just working jobs that they had co-workers where they could relate to and they were like comfortable in their role type of thing. And I was, starting to feel jealous and I was just like, why is my own always like this? Why is it that I've always been the one earning the lowest salary and all these things? So that some of the things that I was really like struggling with. I remember I was always vocal about it. I always told everybody that was my whole personality. Temi, the girl that hates her job. Because anytime I spoke, that was all I could say. Like, oh, like I was just so tired, and I felt bad because I felt like I was in a position that some people were dying to be in, and I'm here, and I just can't seem to function. And another thing is that I had a work phone as well. So again, I have all these projects that I'm dealing with and I'm handling and I'm not familiar with, and I'm constantly getting calls from different people that I've never even spoken to in my life. They just have my number, maybe because they saw it in my email. So that was nothing that was adding to my anxiety. Like, I just didn't want to be at work. I didn't feel. I was also the youngest in the office, so I just didn't really feel like I could relate to anyone. Also, being black as well, there was just nobody that I could really relate to, and I just wish at the time I had some sort of like, I don't know what I wish I had, but I just wish I had like maybe someone to relate to at work, or like some kind of guidance of somebody who's been through it to kind of advise me on how to go. But yeah, I think it was really hard for me because again, the company did sponsor, but again, I didn't miss the salary threshold to be sponsored. And it was just like, even if I was to be sponsored in this role, is this where I want to stay? Like, that was, again, this is where we're talking about that. Should I pursue this at detriment of my mental health? I was thinking, I was like, bro, do I really want to stay here because I want to be sponsored? Like, is it worth it? Like, what's my life going to be? Like, I'm going to be stuck here for 5 years and then what? It was a really, really, really hard time. I think that was 2022, 2023. That was the beginning of like just like slow decline in my mental health. I think till the year ended, my mental health, maybe it started at 50%. By the end of the year, it was on zero. Really tough.
That's actually a deep thing to say, and it's making me wonder now. So, what led to you going back to Nigeria? Because if I remember clearly, you had to move back December 2023. So, obviously, this was the period where your mental health, like you said, was at zero. So, what's the story behind that unanticipated move back to Nigeria after spending 6 years in the UK? I've spent 3 years in the UK, and I'm telling you, I'm two the Joanna in 2021 and the Joanna now, two different people. So
Yeah.
yeah, go on.
I think it started from when I left my job. Like, it was really hard for me
So you left
because
the
I was
job.
like, yep, I quit.
Oh wow.
I woke up for this was me in the morning, right? I wake up in the morning to go to work. My alarm goes and I start screaming. There was there was one time just yelled out loud, and I was just like, "Oh, f my life!" And I was like, "Whoa, why would I say?" First thing in the morning, I woke up and I said that just because I had to go to work, and I don't know. I just again, I'm like, because people will say that, oh, maybe you should have just you could have just stayed, but I was really going through it. I really was, and I wasn't really happy. But there was a particular day that I woke up to go for work. I think I had called in sick the week before because I was just so like emotional. I called in sick, and this job was the job where I called in sick the most. Like, all my retail jobs that were terrible, I didn't even call in sick this bad. I called in sick, and then it was time for me to go back. And I just remembered I couldn't get out of bed. Time was going, 8 o'clock, it was 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I was still in bed. I was just like, God, I can't. Like, I can't bring myself to get out of bed. I don't know what it is. Like, this is too much for me. Like, this is the anxiety, the fear. Like, it feels like I cannot escape work, because this is the thing, right? I would go to work, deal with work, I come back home, but I come back home with my work computer, I come back home with my work phone. These things, even if I put it off, like, it's constantly going. I can't keep my work phone off because I have to sign in a group chat from like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. before I get to the office to let them know where I'm going to be. So it was like a constant, like, I can't escape you. I can't come home and say, oh, I'm home, work is over, because my laptop is in my bag, my phone is in my hand, like, it's be vibrating and all these things. And then I was just like, you know what, I'm going to quit. Like, I know I don't have anything lined up. I'm going to quit. I know it's a stupid decision, some would say, but I'm going to quit. Like, it's just too much for me. And I really debated on it, and I prayed about it a lot. And I was just trying to seek as much guidance as I could on it, because I was like, God, this is why is it that I'm feeling like this? Like, what else can I do? Like, I can't even get myself to go to bed. I don't even have money in my account to even pay for the taxi. Like, it's too much. So I just ended up quitting. And as soon as I quit, I felt so relieved. And then it was just like applying for jobs, applying. yeah, so there was a period of time when I just wasn't working and I was just living off my savings. So again, I did have time to like just like, just like pray more and like spend time with God and all that type of things. But it also was more time for me to like dwell in like sadness and depression and fear and anxiety. Like, what's going to happen with my life now? How am I going to pay my rent? Like, what am I going to tell my parents that I left my job? Like, was that stupid for me to do? It was not great. And I mean, around the time, I did end up finding like this group of people that I met that kind of helped me, like from church as well. But it still wasn't that great. Like the whole job hunting thing was not fun. I started to doubt my whole like experience. Like, am I even good at anything? Like, what am I even applying for? Constant rejection every day, rejection, rejection. And I'll pray. I'll be like, God, let today there will be no more rejection in the name of Jesus. It's the last time, and then it will be 10 rejections to follow. So it really messed with me. It really messed with me a lot. And I did actually get a job afterwards, and unfortunately I was supposed to work at that job for like a period of time or so, whatever. Like they contracted me for the role, and then afterwards they were like, oh, actually we realized that we don't actually need this many people, so we're cutting your contract short. So I think I ended up only working there for 2 weeks, and that was around the time when my visa was about to expire. So you could imagine how I was already like, wow, like, God, why did I go through all this for what? Like, why is this my story? Like, why is this what happened to me? Like after everything that I've gone through in this country, after everything of me like waking up at 5 a.m., going to the office, like all these things, like I feel like I did everything that I thought I possibly could do, and it still didn't pan out the way I wanted. I felt very betrayed. So like it became very, very dark time for me, extremely dark time, because I'm like, what else can I do? What else have I done that, what else could I possibly do that I haven't yet already done? Like, should I have stayed at that job? But like I was miserable. Like, why is it that every job that I've worked since I've been here, I've just been constantly miserable? And I've had friends that they work, like, yeah, they've had bad experiences at work as well, but like I feel like no one's ever really like experience had to deal with what I went through. Those kind of thoughts, like you're the only one going through this type of
They
thing.
have their story, but your own story is like different from everybody else. I hear it.
Like even if like their work is stressful, at least they're getting more paid than I'm
More
getting.
pay.
Do you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
So
So I was just
so now you finally had to move. What were you feeling like? Say when you were packing your bags, the flight ticket was being booked, your journey to the airport. What would you say? Okay, Joanna, this was what I was feeling in that
in that
moment.
moment I was just kind of like, I'm escaping. That's how I felt. It felt like I was escaping the bad vibes, the bad energy. That's what it felt like. I was just like, you know what? It is what it is. Like I wasn't like super like emotional or sad, like, or anything like that. I was just kind of like, yeah, I needed a break type of thing. I wasn't like I wasn't jumping up and down. Oh my god, Nigeria, because I don't really, me and Nigeria were no friends. Anyways, but I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, it is what it is. I'm leaving this place, so I'm not. I don't have to worry about rent. I don't have to worry about all these things that have been plaguing me. I don't have to be in this environment anymore, because that's the thing. I started to like, even though I was living in like a nice place and I had a really nice roommate, I was starting to hate my environment, and like it just was so dark. I felt like, I'm finally escaping this. So that's why I was just like, yeah, I'm going. It is well, and I actually had peace with it, with leaving. I had this like, what you've done is what needed to be done. Like there's nothing else that you could have done. That was what I felt at the
So
time.
obviously, as like I said earlier, you were in the UK for 6 years, and now you are going back to
Yeah.
Nigeria.
Hmm.
How are you coping?
To be honest, like when I left, not a lot of people knew that I left. Like I feel like only a few people. I didn't really tell a lot of people that I was leaving. So I've just really been low key. Like I don't know if people know now, maybe because they haven't seen me in a while. Like no one really knows where I am. Like that's just the truth. No one knows where I am. I don't go anywhere. I have nowhere to go. I have no friends here. And obviously I hate for that to sound like, whatever, but that's just the truth of it. Like I've just been here and I've just been trying to think about, okay, so what's next? Like, I'm just continuing applying for jobs as I've always been. So I don't know if anyone knows where I am, but like, I no one really knows. There's no like auntie or uncle that I like. There's no one that knows like what's happening with me. Like, my parents never really talked about me with anybody, like even before. So there's no one that's like, oh, what are you doing, type of thing. I haven't really experienced that, but that's one side of it, like people feeling shame. But me myself, it was a mix. So as well as I said, oh yeah, I was relieved to come, but there was also just a bit of like disappointment that I've been dealing with in myself, because I'm like, what could I have done? Like, like, this is not what I wanted. I never wanted to come back like this. Like, even if it was to come back, I wanted to come back maybe, in a better standing, not coming back feeling defeated, because that's how I felt at some point. I felt like I was coming back defeated, coming back bruised and battered and whatever. And that's something I've been trying to deal with, and it's not been rosy. It's not. I won't sit down and say, "Oh, yeah, I've been managing it well. I'm doing well. I'm just working through it." It's been very, very difficult, and it's like I am. There's a lot of questions in my head. Like, okay, so what next? What am I doing now? What is my, you know, what do I even want to do? Like, as I'm applying for jobs, like, nothing has happened yet. Is this like a waiting season, just waiting on waiting? But it's like, it's really hard, because I feel like this period of like waiting, it really like brings out so much negativity in you. Like, I feel like it depends on who you are. For some people, they can become more positive and more like hopeful, but for me, it's been like, I don't know, just it's brought out some kind of like negative parts of myself, and it's something that I really don't know how to work through. But yeah, I would just say it hasn't really been easy, because it's sad. Coming back home to your country is something that is kind of like shameful. Like, why is that? That's why I say sometimes I have resentment towards Nigeria as a nation, because it shouldn't be like that. Why should I be coming home and be feeling defeated? Like, this is where I'm from. Why is it that there's no opportunities for people to, especially young people, to build themselves or develop themselves? So seeing it in reality, like, when you're in the UK, you don't really think about Nigeria's problem as much, or you try to avoid it so that it doesn't add to how you're feeling, right? So all these years of actually trying to avoid, like trying to think about it, now I'm here and I'm faced with this, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what Nigeria is like. This is the reality of Nigeria. I think it's kind of like, as much as I don't really like it, it's like allowed me to learn some things, and it's like allowed me to gain a bit of wisdom about just life in general, and I just allowed me to refocus my perspective, and like even just being with my family again. I've been away from my family for so long, for like 6 years. Being with my family again, just being with my brothers, and just like, you know I don't know, just things that I feel like if I had stayed in the UK, I would have never had this opportunity to just be with my family again, even though it's very, very hard. But it's something that I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to be learning something here. I don't really see what it is right now, but I think it's going to make sense eventually when what's supposed to happen happens. But like, sometimes I say, and I think I'm like, as much as I hate where I am right now, and as much as I hate the whole situation, I can see that this was needed in a way for me to have this understanding, for me to be for things to be able to click in my mind, because there's things around me that I've seen that I'm like, oh, okay, I would never have known this if I was abroad. Like, I would never have known this if I never came back home. I wouldn't have, seen this. I wouldn't have understood this, like even with my parents and things like that. So that's something that I try to like think about sometimes when it gets too much. But yeah, it's not been easy, to be honest. I don't think it can ever be, unless you're coming back to Nigeria and like you have your life figured out and you know what you're doing. It's not gonna be fun.
Your story is actually very unique. This was an absolutely great conversation. Do you have anything you'd like to, say to the listeners, final words from Temi, from your experience, something you'd want them to take on with you, with them rather.
Um, I would just say take it easy. Don't be too hard on yourself. I think that's just something that I constantly face. I was just always so hard on myself. In every decision I made, in every situation I was in, I was always just really, really hard on myself. Just don't be so hard on yourself. Like, and just if you are making a decision, like, I don't have to, like, just stand with your decision, because at the end of the day, people will have their opinions, like, oh, want to say one, two, three about what's, you, whatever decision that you've come to, but no one knows what you've been through except you. So yes, it's good to seek guidance and like speak to people, but at the end of the day, don't let anybody try and make you feel any type of way for anything that you, if from your based on your own struggles. If you're trying to, for your own well-being, you're making certain decisions to make yourself feel better or to just improve your total well-being, don't feel guilty about it. you know and I would just say good luck. It's not easy, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, word. That's the word. It's not easy, but it is not impossible. You've got this, whatever it is that you're going through. And also, for those that are going through mental health issues and you would like to speak to someone, please definitely, I'm available for you. Come and talk to me. It's okay. I'll listen. And I want to believe I have valuable advice to give to people. So definitely reach out to me wherever you can. And I look forward to speaking to you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Temi.
No worries.
Thank you so, so much. Exactly, guys. Just as Temi just said, it's not easy, but it's not impossible. And if there's one thing I have also learned in my experience as an international student in the last 3 years, is that whatever you set your mind to, if you work for it, surely you're going to get it. But what is most important is you putting in the effort to work for it. Look at it this way. I could have decided to give up on paying my tuition and just, take the break in study as it is. But no, I chose to fight. I chose to, do something different, do a GoFundMe. And I know I've said this before, but the GoFundMe, there was a probability of it not working. But I needed to be able to wake up in the morning and say, okay, I gave it my all, I gave my best. And that is what is important. Being an international student, it's not easy at all. There is a lot that goes into it that people don't talk about. But the fact that it's not easy doesn't make it impossible. Surely it's possible. You just need to put in the work. And when we say work, it's hard work. Very, very hard work. And just as a recap, today on the podcast, because this is the end of today's episode, Temi shared her story of moving to the UK at a very young age and the impact that had on her mental health. We both talked about the lack of awareness and understanding of mental health in Nigeria and how cultural and religious beliefs contribute to the stigma that surrounds the topic of mental health in Nigeria. Temi recounts her first experiences with mental health, including feeling of, a lack of motivation and just, emptiness. Temi shared her struggles with mental health and the challenges she faced in her job in the UK. She talked about feeling overworked, overwhelmed, anxious, and unsupported by her employers. She comparing herself to her friends who were working better jobs than she was at that point. She came to an understanding that, life could be better. This was not what being employed was all about. And that eventually led her to deciding to quit her job and move back to Nigeria since she wasn't able to get a sponsorship in a job that she was comfortable doing, where her mental health was prioritized. She also, again, discussed the stigma associated with returning home and the feeling of disappointment regarding the situation. But above all, despite the difficulty, Temi has once again advised us that the fact that it's not easy doesn't mean it's impossible. We just all have to keep pushing and seeking opportunities, we don't need to be hard on ourselves. We just need to seek opportunities for growth. And that is what we talked about on today's episode. I really hope the episode today was impactful to you. You were able to learn something. And that is it from me today. Thank you so much for once again tuning in. Don't forget to leave your review and also rate this podcast a 5-star. And I'll see you once again next week on the Real Japa Experience. Thank you so much. Bye.